Well, I should introduce him.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I think most people know David, Rabbi David Lazar.
Uh-huh.
If you don't, you
should.
And maybe you don't know that David runs a really important organisation called Rikma, which is really about creating, well, you should say what it's about, but I could say how I understand what it's about. Creating really great shidduchim, really, between Israeli rabbis and rabbinical students and the community, mainly in America. And every year we're blessed with a visit from David, who brings some Rikma fellows. And this year he's with Ayala Miron, who's got smicha just last year, right?
This last November. Nadya. Mazel tov.
Where did we leave off last time? Anyone remember? I think Perik Shlishi is where we Eze Achana L'Tfila, yeah? Pardon?
Which Amud, which page is it?
Two. It would be on two.
On page 2 or 5?
Two.
2?
We covered that much already?
Oh, I'm looking.
Perik Sheni Avodat Shebelev.
So that's where we did last time, or
Yeah.
how far did we go?
Would you mind? The first couple or three.
All right.
We went all the way.
Okay, so before we get going with the text, I want to raise with you a few things. First of all, we have guests here today, and is there something you want to share with us? You know, it's v'yikoli truma meit kolish asher yibenu libo, etc. You may have something good to offer.
I'd like to share what's one of the hottest hits in Kabbalat Shabbat in Israel right now. It's an old Chabad nigun that I'm sure you know.
Go ahead.
And the words that go with it are Nishama yoredet letoch haguf, היא צועקת וי, ירידה זו צורך עלייה, עד שכל זה כדאי. הנשמה יורדת לתוך הגוף, היא צועקת וי, היא צועקת וי וי, ירידה זו צורך עלייה, עד שכל זה הוא כדאי. ירידה זו צורך עלייה, עד שכל זה הוא כדאי, עד שכל זה הוא כדאי. הנשמה יורדת לתוך הגוף, היא צועקת וי, היא צועקת וי וי, ירידה זו צורך עלייה, עד שכל זה הוא כדאי. ירידה זו צורך עלייה, עד שכל זה הוא כדאי, עד שכל זה הוא כדאי.
Once more.
Hididadai, hididadai, lididai, hidididai, lididai, lai, lai, lai,
Ayala, do you have something that you want to share?
Just one thought about Parashat Truma and
Please.
about the giving. A teaching that I just had a chance to learn is usually we think as le'asher yohav yiten. Those who we love, we give. But I came to think the other way around. When we give, then we love. A giving is a way to come to love somebody. So that's a teaching that I take with me to Parashat Truma.
Very nice, because you have Yahav and Ohev, right? The giving becomes a loving. You have been away and have seen things. Is that something you want to share?
Oh, oh my gosh. I want to share the picture of faces coming to light in the early morning shachar, and the Ayelet HaShachar, your namesake, is glistening in the east, and the moon glistening in the west, and then both of them fade, and the faces of our compatriots coming to light and davening from that place. That's a memory I have from a beautiful Chavraya meeting in California with that was spent a lot of time outside studying Zohar outside, davening outside.
Well, Baruch Hashem. When people get a chance to see Hameir La'aretz in reality, then the davening becomes real. You know, if you only say Hameir La'aretz in the Besmedrash and you never see the sunrise, you know, it doesn't. And that brings me back to the Hanot and Lasech Vibina at 10 o'clock in the morning on Shabbos, you know, with the retarded rooster. So, you know.
So this is I can say it, my 47th anniversary of my bar mitzvah.
Mazel tov.
So somebody asked me if I remembered what I said, and I have absolutely no recollection.
We're so surprised.
Yeah, but one of the things what's amazing is that whatever I said had to be so inconsequential, because over the years this parsha has become more and more deep in the encounter, because I used to think, oh man, just after all this revelatory experience and Exodus experience, we're now getting into the architectural construction business, which I know nothing about, because Jews with tools is an oxymoron. So now I suddenly discovered this year that there is a real division of opinion about that betocham. And Rabbi Zalman has sent me a project that I'm working on paradigm shifting to Nachman Krochmal. And this week I discovered that he uses that pasuk to suggest that the source of spirituality, as I read what he's saying, is not our inner being, but the sole source is God. That's what it means when God will dwell among us, that it's kind of like God will be the radiator of spirituality. But I discovered this week also that there's a difference of opinion from the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim to the Sfat Emet about who's the vessel or where's the vessel. So, what's his name? The Krakover Rebbe, Kalanimus
Kalman of Marav Shomish.
yeah, says that we're the vessel, that this is where it dwells, the Shekhinah. And the Sfat Emet says, no, we're only the, never could come up this week with a good word. We're the agent to
bring him into the
to
presence.
bring him into the presence, but the Shekhinah doesn't reside within us. It's betocham.
It's in the plural rather than the individual. Yeah. Well, it's in the field. That's the whole. That's why we talk about the binyan malchut, the God field, building the God field. Anyone else would like to come in with anything that you've been thinking that has to do with this Sedra? When you talk, you have to talk louder. I always sit on the side, and you whisper to the other people. I don't know what and I want to try. Okay, so anything you want to say?
Loudly.
Well, in the meantime, while you're thinking, there is the word that is v'yikhu li truma. So the Balaturim makes from v'yikhu li, you want to take me, oti. V'yikhu li, if you want to take me, truma, it is through the Torah, shenitna lemem yom. Torah mem truma. How do you take God? By anan nafshai katavit yahavit, the anochi. I've written myself into that thing, into Torah. This week I was busy with Ken Wilber and the Integral Institute, and it was wonderful to. There's a lot of good things that happened, and I tell you, sometimes the presenter talking about who's the field, who does it, and so on and so forth. When Rav Kook says there's some people whose ears open up the mouth, you know. There's a certain eloquence that came to Mordechai Gafni when he was talking about soul print in a very, very good way, taking things of the Ishbitzer, where he talks about how everyone brings in a certain amount of distortion into the world. Then there was Gempo Roshi. Gempo Roshi's name is Merzel. It's so wonderful to find all the Yiddelach there. And among the presenters, there was another man from Fred Kaufman. So you see that there is something about Sidkas Pizronot, Stok Osa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shepizron Bein HaUmot. So it turns out that among the people who were the helpers, the secondaries in command, setting things up, also the Yiddelach. And I've seen this. Second in command of most of the ashrams in America have been Jews who have done that. So then Gempo Roshi did something remarkable. He has a system in which he addresses the various parts of individuals. So he begins with the self, with the dualistic self. And he asks people to respond. You're now the dualistic self. So the people say, we are now the dualistic self. And how do you see the world? You know? In contradiction and in troubles and in this and in that. And then he would take you to other places until he finally gets to the unique soul part of oneself. And so that's wonderful how he took people through. And if he ever comes to Boulder, I'd like to ask him to sit with all of us and take us to this thing, because it turns out he wants to get people to the greater mind from the smaller mind. So I don't need to tell you that he's talking about Mochen de Gadlus. How do you get to Mochen de Gadlus in a half hour? And he was able to do that with people. And that was very, very remarkable. And I'm not going to try and make it happen, because I haven't, you know, how would I say, I haven't made a kinyan.
You haven't made it your own. You haven't made it your own.
Yeah, so I need to wait with that, but it was wonderful.
Haven't brought it to Dad yet.
Pardon?
You haven't brought it to Dad yet. It's still
I haven't
talking
brought it to
about
that, right. the surprise is always when you read the Haftorah. Then you see how Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash. And every time you get the notion, ooh, how big a Beis HaMikdash it was, and you get to see it was a small thing. You know, just figure. It was 30 amma high, it was 60 amma long, you know. The whole thing from our perspective, when I look at the Belzer Shul now in Yerushalayim, you know, how huge it is, and I think we looking at the Kotel, so we think we see the leftovers of Herod's temple, but if you look at Shlomo Melech's Beis HaMikdash, the Mikdash Rishon, it was a pretty small building. For years I've been dealing with the question of what is Shkufim Atumim.
I'm sorry?
It says that he built the windows of the Beis Hamikdash Shkufim Atumim. So the Gemara says that they were wide on the inside and small on the outside, so that the light from inside was shining outside, and so on and so forth. So I was very glad to find that the Mitzvah agrees with me, because he says it was Zechuchit. So it is Shkufim, Shakuf, it's transparent, Atumim, but it's also closed. So since they didn't talk much about glass as part of the building, but the Phoenicians did have glass at that time. So it is very likely that Shkufim Atumim doesn't mean what the Chazal said it meant, but it meant a lot more, that this was glass, these were glass windows in the Beis HaMikdash.
One-way glass?
Huh?
One-way mirror glass?
No. Before you go, I'll show you the one-way glass. I have a thing with one-way glass that Barry Barkin introduced me to. When you line up the eyes and you look at each other, and you see the two faces merge, it's
bizarre.
Especially if one is a woman, the other one is a man, and then the woman has a beard. All right, so let's go to the text over here and see. Oh yes, I want to say something yet about the about that niggun. One of the things that I find absent in the system that Wilbur has, and Wilbur has a fantastic system. I was saying to the people yesterday that when I first saw his writings in Revision magazine in the 60s, early 60s, when he got into the people who were the founders of transpersonal psychology, and so that was a magazine in which he wrote, I there discovered that here was a person whose cosmology was so important that most of the people who were still stuck in, if you will, pre-quantum cosmology had no idea, you know, because to them the Gashmias was so firm, you know, if you can't touch it and if you can't see it, and then it isn't. And here was someone coming and talking about psychological spaces and was talking about quantum stuff, and I found that very important. So that's when I discovered him as in his Dharma. Then when I first got to meet him and I made the brocha, Asher Cholak Mechachmoseh Lebasav Adam, I met him as the Buddha. And that yesterday when all the people were there, that was his Sangha, you know. So these three inyanim of Dharma and Buddha and Sangha were there in the way in which, and I feel that any update of Kabbalah that doesn't take into consideration what he has to offer isn't going to work. So when I was at RRC, I would say to them that you can't stop with Kaplan, Buber, and Heschel and say that's the modern period. Yeah, and nowadays you have to talk about the postmoderns in a way, because I don't know if any of you have looked at Erwin Laszlo. Do you know who he is? No. Okay, look him up, Google him up. Laszlo, Erwin Laszlo. He is the founder of the Budapest Club, that's what they call it. And they have all the big moichin of the world involved in this thing. And one of the things that he's talking about, that this universe is only, when we hear about and so on and so on and so forth, and it doesn't, you want to know, is there something beyond that? And he talks about the metaverse, which issues out a universe. And all these issues about Tzimtzum and so on and so forth are important. The other day, I was learning something that was making the point that the Shvira that took place, that Luria talks about, is seen as a Shvira from a masculine point of view, but from a feminine point of view, it wasn't a tragedy. So I forgot who the Rebbe was I was learning, who was saying that a tailor, when he takes a piece of bad, he talks about a piece of schora, and it's one piece, but then he cuts it, and no, it was the Maggid of Mezrich who says it. Then he cuts it into many pieces. So some people would say, "Oh, Gewalt, it's a shvira, it's broken." But how else are you going to make a sleeve? So he says that's the way it comes into being. That's a wonderful, wonderful piece. If I have a criticism on some things that are missing in his system, it is that he has favored the Buddhist and the Hindu mythology and the depth stuff, and has not taken the Western stuff into his schema, because St. John of the Cross also has something to say about it. Then we're talking about shadow, and when he talks about dark night of the senses, dark night of the soul, and so on and so forth, that's not integrated in the system, and of course not our stuff either. So when I find that so little of what we have to say is out in the world for people who are dealing with cosmology and so on, so I think the more we can publish, the better it is. If you have seen in the last issue of Tikkun, Shaul Magid had an article about renewal, and in the next issue there will be something more about renewal and the area of philosophy and theology, and it's going to be an interesting piece. I've seen it. He sent me a preview of that.
So you were Makayim both Perushim
Yeah.
of the window. The
Yeah.
transparent, being able to see in the outside. It's like
Yeah.
what Rav Kook says in the Gemara and Brachos, and why you need to have a window in a Beit Knesset.
Yeah,
Rav Kook in Yosef says, in order to see the people outside.
that's right.
And so, and on the other hand, you want the light to shine outwards.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
see?
So that's why Shkufim Atumim as transparency is important.
But also Chazal, so that the
Yeah.
light from...
Inside to outside.
See, you didn't know you were such a... Mefasher. How do you say mefasher?
Okay.
But Reb Zalman, you were going to somehow link it to David's Nigun.
Yeah, I want to get to that.
Okay.
One of the things that they are not talking about in all the meditative disciplines is the function of gaguim, of longing. And the more you see, not what the people who are, how would I say, the describers of the mochin of that, but the people who are involved in the avoda of that, they'll all tell you about how necessary the gaguim are. Al mishkavi balelot bikashti echa ahava nafshi bikashti velo matzati. So that element of longing is very, very seldom incorporated in that. And it turns out that if we didn't have that energy, it wouldn't take us anywhere. Reb Nachman in his Hishtadlut HaNefesh, Meshivat Nefesh, has the following image. Sitra Achra always swallows things, and whatever it can swallow of Kedusha, it wants to swallow it. Then it doesn't get so satisfied because it is hav and halitenina. It says more and more, give me more, give me more, give me more, until finally it wants to bring a person to the great Nisayan, which is to be a kofer b'Hashem. But since a Jew finds that not possible, so then the Gaguim start up at him, and he does that kind of tshuva. I can't be separated. You know, someone translated Ein Zulascha Malkeinu L'chai Elam Haba. What is Elam Haba? Elam Haba is in Yiddish, Ich ken on dir nicht leben. Ein Zulascha Malkeinu. Without you, I can't live. I need you in my life. I really want to see you, you know. And in those systems that you find in Buddhism and so on and so forth, they don't like these kinds of things. So I was saying something about attachment, you know. They may say you shouldn't have any attachment, and dafke for us, dveikut is very important, you know. So it depends on to whom you have the attachment or how you have the attachment. So that's missing there. So the Nigen is very good because it talks about oi and the gewalt and all that. The opposite, on the other hand, is kimei hashamayim al haaretz. That the sense that I'm in Golus here is a problem. So we had last week some people, colleagues of yours, who were here, and they were talking about how Jews in America are a different kind at this point, and there is now a feeling that we are not here just in Golus anymore, that we are here really, that we here belong. And I was talking to Milton Bonder and his people when I was in Brazil, because they were still talking about as if they're not Toshavim in Brazil. And I was saying, why don't you own that you have more of a chelik in Brazil than many of the other people have? Take a look, who are the people, the conversos who came and so on and so forth. To this day, if you're in a hotel in Rio on Shabbos, they will serve you cholent made from chazar. Feischwado, you know, it's cholent from beans and so on and so forth, but made with chazar meat. Okay? And dafke, you never get feischwado on Sunday. So there is that element that they don't own enough to be able to say we were here before. And I was talking with Ayala before. Thank you so much.
From your beloved. I'm just the messenger.
Thank you, thank you.
Chaim.
That the sadness that I feel about that Iraq is becoming Judenrein when her family came lachatchila from Iraq, and you figure al Naharat Bavel Sham Yashavnu Gam Bachinu Bezachinu at Sion, which was so even before the Churban Bayit Sheni, we were there in that place, you know, and it took another 800 years before Muhammad showed up in Iraq, and people don't, you know, and now it has to be Judenrein. And I look at the same thing in Mitzrayim and in Syria. When I think of, I wanted to show you a book, I'll show it to you later on, where people are Chalab, Damascus, you know, when you look at who were the people who were there. I heard from a mullah from Iran that his father was a Qadi there, and whenever he needed to have a conversation about dinim in Islamic halacha, he would go over to the Rav and talk with him about things like this because they shared so much. When I look at Yosef Chaim of Baghdad and what he has produced for us, he was sort of the Hasidic Rebbe in the Posek of Baghdad, and so on. So that gives me some problems. But then I want to come back. That why should neshamas want to come down here? You say Yeridat Zerech Aliyah. There is no other universe that at this point we can talk about where you can do anything except this one here, except this Olam Hazeh. That even the Buddhists are saying that it's such a chus to be born, because in no other world can you achieve what you can achieve here. So that I think part of the Golas is to think that we're in Golas here. And, and part of the Geula is to be able to say, like you were describing the sunrise and how how this world was made. And when you say Kiddush and you say, Vaya Elokim es kol asher asa v'hine tov me'od, Vahi erev vahi voka, is to be able to say something good. I think we need to have some advocacy for Olam Hazeh, to say that b'chol derachecha de'ehu and dafke hayom la'asotam, and that this Olam Hazeh is a good place. So how do we take how should we handle the gaguim? The gaguim could be handled in a way when you start looking at how this world could be, Kimi Hashemayim al haaretz, and it isn't. So we need to put the gaguim in the service of what this world could be like. So anyway, enough of what I want to say here. So tzarich sheyechaven ha'adam. צריך שיכוון האדם ליבו וכל מעשיו כולם לידע את השם ברוך הוא בלבד.
Page 5.
Hey. ויהיו שפטו וקומו ודיבור הכל לעומת זה הדבר.
צריך שתבין עליו.
וכשאוכל ושותה וכולו. You know what a bechula is, yeah? No. Deal with sex, okay? Yasim al libo sheyehei gufo shalem v'chazak k'dei shetiyeh nafsho yeshara ledat et Hashem. Sheyi efsher sheyavid v'yistakel b'chokhmot v'hu ra'ev v'choleh. או אחד מאיבריו כואב. ואפילו בשעת שינה, אם יש שם כדי שתנוח דעתו עליו, וינוח גופו שלא יחלה ולא יוכל לעבוד את השם, נמצאת שינה שלא עבודה למקום באופי. נמצא המהלך בדרך זו כל ימיו עובד את השם תמיד, אפילו בשעה שנושא ונותן he does business. I like this נושא ונותן. It's cash and carry. Right?
That's good.
ועל עניין זה סברו חכמים כל מעשיך יהיו לשם שמיים, והוא שאמר שלמה בחוכמתו בכל דרכיך דעו וישר אורחותיך. Now he's quoting the Rambam in Hilchot Deot. There is an element that was taking such central position that had to do with God being in the transcendent place. Look at page Kuf Lamed.
Okay.
So when you're talking about God as transcendent, then you say anything else is less because it isn't transcendent. But if you talk about God as immanent, the memale kol almin, then you don't have that same situation. So when Reb Levi Yitzchak says, the do the lev mizrach do, mariv do, wherever I go is do, a recognition that in this we find that, and in each other we find that, looking at each other and saying, if the nefesh elokis, if I really believe that you are chelik elokam imal mamish, and I need to pray, and es geht mir etwas nicht, and I can say, would you please do me a favor, let me address the God within you, because I'm having trouble to talk to the God within me, and we have done these things when we are doing dyadic davening.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the way in which the Rambam is balanced. I think I told you the Maisa about the Rambam and the half hour. Do you remember that? Who hasn't heard it?
I don't remember.
Okay. So there's a story about that the Rambam would disappear every day for a half hour.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of the Talmidim wanted to find out what he's doing, so he followed him and he hid in the place where he went. And he saw he comes in and takes off his big halat and the turban and all the kind of stuff, and starts jumping around and making himself meshigit. And then after a half hour is over, he straightens up his beard, puts on his and goes out and is ready. And the guy stops him and says, "What did you just do now?" And he says, there isn't a person in the world who doesn't have in a me'et la'et, in 24 hours, at least half hour of mishigas. So it always mixes into everything that you do. I do my half hour of mishigas, and the rest of the time I can be sane. And when I know what the people did in some of the Sufis did that in Indonesia as part of what they call subud. And they had a practice called latihan, and the men and the women would practice separately, and they would go into a place and someone would say begin, and whatever would come into your head, you would do. And then they would say finish, and you'd be finished with that. And that was such a way of clearing up a lot of stuff that otherwise would be waiting and be constantly repressed. You never get a chance to get it out of you.
Like Purim.
Huh?
Like Purim is carnival.
Yes.
Marti.
There it becomes socially acceptable once a
Get it out
year.
of your system, and then,
Yeah.
then you can go
But
into
it's
Rosh Chodesh.
But it's not enough. So
Well, some of us need
but
Purim every day.
a half hour of Purim every day.
Huh?
A half hour of Purim every day.
That's right.
I
Our
guess I
kids
gotta
teach
cut
us, right?
back.
Our kids teach us that, right?
Yeah. But when you told the story to me a couple years ago,
Yeah.
you told it that that's what he did at the beginning of the morning after he davened,
Yeah.
but before he put the turban
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
So he got it out at the beginning. And when I asked you for the source of that story, you said it came out of Chabad.
Yeah.
So just last week, I finished reading Heschel's article on
Rambam.
Rambam. He doesn't cite a source. He does it through kind of this logical back movement of, given his son's closeness to the Sufis, where did he learn it from? He learned it from his father. And that they would have the morning practice of doing it together.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You
This
see,
one-
these
Really?
are the kinds of things that you have to get. What do I like about the Hasidic Maises? They're sort of holy gossip.
That's good.
And
If they didn't happen, they should have happened.
well, no, some even those things that did happen, you don't hear so much. Sometimes there's a little put down of one Rebbe by the other. And these are the things you'd never hear, find them stated, and so you have to wait for someone who's ani harachil agale et sodo, somebody who decides that he's going to let on. Okay, Eze olam malei ora metikut hu olam hazeh b'shvil ele she'enam shikuim bo. So that's what we were talking about
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
It is
Perfect
a, it is a
timing.
good world, provided you're not shakua in it. Eze olam chashuch u'mahu b'shvil ele hashkuim bo. Reb Moshe Mikobrin.
That's our version of detachment.
Uh-huh.
Be fully engaged, yet
Yeah.
able to know that there's another
Not being
olam.
addicted to it, right? Yeah.
It's also Rabbi Nachman's idea of the mark, carrying the mark on your head and never really playing into this as being reality.
Yeah.
You live here as if this is not the greatest reality that's there.
That's true, but on the other hand, to try and look for it elsewhere, and to say not here, not
Right.
here, Davke here. So you were saying something just now. Wednesday, there were several people. Brother David Steindl-Rast was there too, and they all came with the ash sign
Right.
over there. So. There's so many things that the Christians claim is a chiddush for them, And I want to say, look in Yecheskel, v'hitveit hatav al mitzveh hanashim, right?
Keset HaSofer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd never seen it. I was in New York on Wednesday, and I'd never been in an American city
Yeah.
on a Wednesday.
On Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, on an Ash Wednesday, and in the beginning, I didn't know what it was. I didn't remember it was Ash Wednesday. And I see one person. I said, okay, maybe they got their mascara. And I see another person. I'm starting to think maybe I'm in a movie, one of those movies where you see something, that nobody else sees.
Yeah.
Because they're so nonchalant about it. But it was
Yeah.
just amazing once I figured out what was going on. So many people in New York. It was very powerful.
Well, it's the beginning of tshuva time for them.
Okay.
The strange thing is that because Jesus died young, that they have all the Yom Tovim in the spring. So they had to move Yom Kippur to Good Friday, and they don't have Simchas Torah, and they don't have all these things that we have in the fall. So it's a religion of grace, because it's always Morit HaTal. For them, it's never Mashi Baruch or Morit HaGeshem. So this is really serious. If one could help them out in some way to recognize that therefore it's a youth religion. They don't have the model of someone who the first people who died when they were older was Chrysostom and Polycarp, some of the early fathers. Okay.
Well, Wednesday night after the Ash Wednesday service at the church, I asked the pastor, what's a proper salutation to somebody?
Yeah.
And she said, I've never heard of one. She says, do you have one during your tshuva period? So I explained to her about, Gmar Chatima, and she said, we don't have the concept of the conclusionary part, which is a fascinating theological separation between them and us. So she said, based on what I'm telling you, what Lent is all about, what would you suggest as a salutation? So, knowing me, I said, cover your ash.
I would say, good Yom Tov. Good Yom Tov.
And that's interface work.
Tav. It comes from the Tav.
Good Yom Tov.
The thing is from the Tav in Keska, so it's good Yom Tov.
What did the Tav actually stand for?
The Tav was like the P.
I know, it's like an at,
It
like
was
an
the
X.
X on the forehead
Tau,
of
it's
those
like a
that were going to
cross.
be Zoche.
The original.
But it didn't stand for a word, a Tav word.
No. It was
It's a
because
sign.
the Tav was like a
The
P
sign, okay.
in Greek.
It was the word, yeah.
I have a sense that the way in which one could greet would be to say, we're in this together, we need to change, something of this. The Teimanim have such wonderful ways of greeting. So the morning is Chadashim LaBekarim, and the other one says Rabbi Munatecha. Good night, you say Betuv Talin, and they say Takitz Berachamim,
Beautiful.
Well, for us, the Moadim Lesimcha, Chagim Uzmanim Lesason was also taken from them. And they have a whole bunch of such greetings in which psukim are being used that way. Okay. Hon HaOlam, Reb Moshe Kobriner. In the order of the Rebbes, it was like this. The Magid, Reb Aaron and Reb Shlomo Karlina. Then it was Reb Mordechai of Lechwich, Reb Noach of Lechwich, and then comes Reb Moshe Kobrina in that shalshelet of Slonim. Okay? And he felt a certain kind of that everything was with him with pashtut. It had to be very simple. So one day a man came to him and says, "How must I look at you?" Because he didn't make a big Rebbeische shtick about himself. He didn't want to take on the Rabbistve for a while because there was still a grandson of the Lechwitcher around and he didn't want to take it away from him. But they insisted because he was such a wonderful Oved Hashem. So one day a man comes to him and it's already in the afternoon and he's having his breakfast, a little bit of kasher. So the guy comes into his, he doesn't have a special receptionist, a gabbai to let people in. This guy is telling him his tale of woe. And he's making the broche, shehakol niyeh bidvara, on the kasher. And the guy continues to tell him the tzoros. He says, "Your father came to me at one point. The same situation." And I said, "Shehakol niyeh bidvaro." And then I turned to him and I said, "So what do you have to say?" He said, "What can I say? Shehakol niyeh bidvaro." And you continue to nudge me about your things. Can't you really see the reality of Shehakol niyeh bidvaro? Another time a man came to see him and said, "Rebbe, you don't make yourself so Rebbish. So what do I have to believe in order that you should be my Rebbe?" So he says, "You have to believe only this. The Torah is like Mayim, Nimshal Mayim, and Mayim goes from above to below. So you have to see me just a kletzel hecha von sich, just as if I were standing on a block of wood a little bit higher than you. That's all you need to do. You don't have to insult me." And the notion of him being an accessible model and not a archetypal model, that's what's very important. So he says, to recognize, and this is the thing, Hen ha'olam eino shaveh l'sha'ah achat she'ish Yisrael omed b'yishuv hada'at u'b'da'at miyushevet.
What's the difference?
How would you translate that? You would say a person is not in the reactive mode. Okay. To be in Yishuv Hada'at is not to be in a reactive mode, to be able to be settled and to be able to consider what the options are. Haklala harishona shebetocha hi habahalaha. Now here you have the same thing. כשנלקח ישב הדעת מהאדם והוא טרוט ובהול בפרנסתו תמיד עד ששוכח ייעודו בעולמו לזכור הבורא יתברך שמו. עיקר עבודת האדם היא לשכוח מענייני עולם הזה ולהיות שקוע בעבודת השם. Well, I don't think we ever, you get this thing that is so contrast. Forget about Olam Hazeh and just get into Avodat Hashem. And when you get a sense that Avodat Hashem is also with Olam Hazeh, that this is not to be, I have a feeling that the high contrast stuff that comes from seeing everything black and white and not in colors, for instance, and not in different shades of gray and so on and so forth. One of the things that I once heard is, what was the problem with the Eitz Hadat? That before eating from the Eitz Hadat, there was Tov and there was Ra. But now we became Yodeh Tov Ra, like ham and eggs. It's always gemished, That you can never find any Tov that doesn't have any Ra, and you can never find any Ra that doesn't have any Tov. So the Eitz Hadat is that it's so mixed that it's very hard to tell. And if you can understand that you're dealing with shades of gray, it's such a difference. Someone sent me an email today. Apparently the CCAR is now making an appeal to other rabbis that they should sign off on a statement that says that Florida should recognize same-sex marriages, but keep a separation of church and state, so that no clergy person who doesn't want to endorse that doesn't have to endorse that. So I had the feeling that if we could do everything that the Bureau of Vital Statistics does in the same way, separate church and state. You want to have a marriage registered with all the rights and privileges of pertaining thereto, that are the social ones, the financial ones. Do that. But solemnizing a wedding should not be part of the business of the country. That should remain in the hands
That's
of
how
the
it is in
various.
most European countries.
Huh?
Most European countries are like that.
Yeah.
You have to have a civil wedding separate. In France it's like that. In Holland it's like that. In Belgium it's like that.
That would make a lot more sense this way. So, yeah. לעולם אין לסמוך על סברת השכל. Don't believe everything you think.
Don't mind your mind.
כי ייתכן שהיצר הרע כבר השתלט על שכלו, רק התורה הקדושה היא אמת לסמוך עליה.
It's difficult.
You know, you can reason with reason. In some Sforim they tell that the people who were the Pashata people went on Mesiras Nefesh when the great temptation came that they had to be forcibly accepting another religion. So who were the ones who went al Hamokat, who were ready to be killed and burned, were the simple people. And the people who were the great Chochmah people found good reasons why they should reason with reason. You know? מצוות ועשית הישר והטוב בעיני השם אלוקיך הוא תכלית התורה ומעשים טובים. Every once in a while, some people try and push a frum thing on you, but it doesn't fit with Tov and Yashar. You know what I'm saying? And right now, when you see all the stuff that's happening with Islam, I've been corresponding with some people who are into Islamic renewal. And it's so interesting both that they're afraid to come out very strong. There's a woman by the name of Irshad is her first name. She's in Toronto. She's a lesbian lady and she has been...
The trouble with Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she sends out over the web so that people can
and
read material that otherwise is not available.
Right, and she's doing that. And there's some other people who have been publishing things of this sort, and I even got something from a website of people who are trying to talk about a compassionate Islam now, because they feel that that's important. So the issue of Hatov ve'Yashar be'enei Hashem Elokecha as being the more powerful thing. You know, when you have darker things that are darachei darchei noam. And some of the time, it's even a halachic situation that I forgot what it was. I think I have to do something with Lulav, but I don't remember. Where a halacha is being set aside because it isn't darkei noam. The darkei noam is the thing that overwhelms the halachic statement. So when he says this thing about Ve'asita ha'yashar ve'hatov be'enei Hashem Elokecha, he tachlis ha'torah ma'asim tov. And when you say tachlis, then you have at least a way of saying, if it doesn't lead to that, is a siman that it isn't. You know what I'm saying? If it leads away from yashar and hatov. Yeah. וכמו שמצינו בארון שהשיב למשה ואכלתי חטות היום, היית בעיני השם, Lo amar hakatorah hayiti oseh. That's wonderful. Yeah. He isn't saying that I follow the Shulchan Aruch about the thing. Or kehalacha hayiti oseh? Question mark. Ela haya shoel et atzmo im yitvu be'einav be'enei Hashem.
That's nice. Yeah.
Would someone else read? I'm a little hazily. Can you read this stuff?
צריך להיזהר במידות הרעות, גאווה, כעס, שיחה בטלה, תאוות התענוגים, עיצבון וכיוצא באלה, יותר מהזהירות בקיום המצוות, עשה ולא תעשה. כי בהיותו בעל מידות טובות, בנקל יקיים כל המצוות. אין המידות מכלל לתרי"ג מצוות, אך המה הכנות עיקריות אל תרי"ג המצוות, קיומן או ביטולן, והן כיסא ויסוד ושורש אל הנפש העליונה השכלית, אשר בה תלויות תרי"ג מצוות התורה. חיים ויטל.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about that here. Who would like to start? Well, if
It reminds me that when I just started meditating, in transcendental meditation, so the instruction was just meditate 20 minutes a day. There was no instructions about how to live your life, what to eat, and the assumption was, which really proved itself to be reality, is naturally people became vegetarian. Lots of things naturally happen just by twice a day meditating. So it's the same principle.
One of the things that keeps coming out, what's the word?
He's better, but we'll see it with the blood work.
Okay.
I don't know if you were told my dog's really sick.
It's very hard. I don't know how to say Misha Berach at Sirius. You know, how do you begin? You can't say Misha Berach Avram Yisroel V'Yaakov Yevorah Sakelev, you know? But I think...
The dog, the canine ancestors.
Right? Misha Berach et Kalev ben Yefune. Or something like this.
Kalev ben Hanale.
When you look at the issue that keeps coming up, between when Christians keep on saying, why is it that in Judaism you're so much in what the Germans call a Leistungsreligion, or, you know, a religion of activities that you have to do. And Jesus never talks about these things, he talks about attitude. And the answer is the same answer. You hear you say that Chaim Vital is doing the same thing. You move from the outside, from the periphery, you move inside. So you get to the place where you say, these are the actions. But then when you go from the pratim of the actions, you go to the klal. And the klal has to do with the attitudes, the inner attitudes. So the thing to point out to them would be to say, take a look. It's not only until it came to Jesus. Halo peros l'rav lachmecha v'aniyim merudim tavi bayit. You know, all these things that you find already in Yeshayahu and all the other Nevi'im, you can start saying, after a while, you don't talk anymore about the discrete and concrete actions, you talk with people about attitudinal things. But then you can also say, and what forms the attitude? What is prior to the attitude?
Well, it seems to me that the actions form the attitude after a while. I mean, you could look at it both ways.
Right.
That if you're established in being, as they said, you know, then you will perform right action. But if you perform right action, that will lead you to be established in being, I think. It both ways. It goes both ways. And also there has to be both knowledge and experience. So you have to have the experience of some of the time at least sitting in meditation, And some of the time, and the rest of the day you perform action, and you actually do mitzvot, and that keeps you continuously doing what you need to do, but you have the experience, and then the knowledge will have more meaning when you learn something.
Each informs the other.
Yeah, exactly. Each informs. Yeah, you need both.
The point you're making was expressed by William James and another guy by the name of Lange, and they have what they call the James Lange theory, in which comes out like this. Usually we would say we run because we are afraid. And they were saying you're afraid because you run. So that's a reciprocal thing. But there is an element of apperception that makes for these things. When I perceive a person, first of all, I project on a person bad attitudes. And then then the midot come from that kind of seichel, from the projection of the way in which I see the person. There is a shtickle Torah that goes like this. Vayira Yaakov me'od vayetzalo. So Rashi tells us that Vayira Yaakov me'od, he was afraid that Esau would kill him. Vayetzalo, and it troubled him that he would have to kill Esau. So the question is, what are you so worried about? You might have to kill him, it's fine, you have a right to kill him if he comes to kill you. So the pshat goes that I heard goes like this. He was afraid that the Yetzer Hara that he had vis-a-vis his brother, to always see him in the wrong way. That he will make a move in his direction and he will interpret it that this is a move to hurt him, and so therefore he will kill him, and he will think it's self-defense, and it's not self-defense. Vayira Yaakov me'od, he was afraid. Why? Vayetzalo, he had a Yetzer Hara in relation to his brother, which is an apperception thing, and you have to watch out for that. Yeah. All right. Ein hamidot, that you said already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next. Yud.
ירידת האדם לעולם הזה היא על מנת שיתקן כל המידות כולן. אף על פי כן, יש לכל אחד מידה מיוחדת שבשבילה ירד, ואיזו היא? זו שקשה עליו ביותר.
That's great.
כיוון שקיבל על עצמו דבר מסוים, שזאת תהיה מידתו המיוחדת לו, הרי הוא לעניין זה ביהרג ואל יעבור. ואף גם זאת, אדם העמל במידה טובה מיוחדת לעשות על ידה רצונו יתברך, מסייעין אותו משמיים, שיוכל להשיג ולהגיע על ידי זה לכל המידות הטובות. That's nice.
That business of the, what Mordechai Gafni talks about soul print, he's taking that from the Ishbitzer, who's talking about the flaw, the basic flaw with which we come into the world. And I like to speak of that as the opal issue. That when you look at an opal, in one light it's like a flawed stone, and another light it shines with beautiful light, with beautiful color. And so it's the same thing. What happened, for instance, when they first discovered a transistor, was that the PNP junction that makes the transistor work, positive, negative, positive thing, was because the silica had a flaw. And it's the flaw that makes for it to be able to serve as an amplifier. And that element, which is the midah miyuchedet for a person, which Gurdjieff used to call I forgot what he used to call it, but it's a midah miyuchedet, you know.
What was the word that the Ishbitzer used?
Huh?
What was the word? How did the Ishbitzer talk about the soul's flaw?
I don't remember it right now, but the story is the wonderful story of the Nachman with the Hengleichter, with the chandelier. No?
No.
A man, he describes that story at the end of the Likutei Moharan. There's one little story, it goes like this. A man had a son, and the son went and he sent him away to learn an umanut. He should become a great something. So he learned how to make chandeliers. And
Oh, it's the menorah.
The menorah.
Story. Oh, yeah, sure we know that.
Right?
I never thought it was a chandelier.
Well, it says Henglichter.
Oh. Okay.
That's how he doesn't call it a menorah like a standing menorah, but a menorah that's hanging. So Reb Nachman calls it the Henglichter. Another Rebbe once, Reb Moshe, the son of the Kozhenitzer Maggid, Reb Moshe Yokum Berea, was writing in a sefer about Malachim and Neshamas. So Reb Simcha Bunim was looking over his shoulder, and he says, have you met Neshamas? Have you met Malachim? And Rabbi Yochum looks back at him, he says, you haven't? He says, so tell me, what does it look like? He says, you look at the crystal chandelier and you see all the wonderful colors that are reflected there. That's what, looking at auras and seeing those images. So he goes and he makes a beautiful chandelier. After he spent some time first talking with his father and with all the other people in town, makes the chandelier and shows it to his father, and his father says, "Oh, beautiful, beautiful, but here I see something that's a bit wrong." But the papa is still very proud and takes the chandelier and shows it to all the people in town, and everybody can find the chesron in the chandelier. And he comes back and he says, I don't understand. Everybody could find the chesron. He says, that's how good a man I am at this thing, because I put all the chesronis that I found in town into the chandelier. So that's another way of dealing with those geschäften. You know, if we but could see all the chesronis that are in people, then we would be able to organize our congregation so beautifully. We would put, if someone is a quetcher and so on and so forth, we would make him the comptroller. You handle the cheshbonot. We would be able to organize the people according to their flaws, and then each one would be Hakol al Mekomo Yavo B'Shalom, and they would be able to do the work that they need to do. Okay. You gotta go. Go l'chaim l'shalom.
Thank you.
Be matzliach and bawem. With on Sunday morning. I like when I tell him Bino Deshi Yarbitzeni, he makes me sprawl. Yeah, on the green thing, or when I say Koltu. Or when I say to them, B'magle tzedek, there's always twisted. It's never straight.
Shabbos.
אתה חוזר אחר כך
Okay, it's 7 minutes more to go, so let's go ahead to Chaparayim, one more shtickle and then we go.
מצווה על כל אדם לאהוב את כל אחד ואחד מישראל כגופו, שנאמר ואהבת לרעך כמוך. לפיכך צריך לספר בשבחו ולחוס על ממונו, כאשר הוא חס על ממון עצמו ורוצה בכבוד עצמו. והמתכבד בקלון חברו, אין לו חלק לעולם הבא. וכל השונא אחד מישראל בליבו, עובר בלב, שנאמר, לא תשנא את אחיך בלבביך. בשפחו, ולחוס על ממונו. Carefully, somebody's else.
Interests.
That is such a difficult thing, because the midot of people are not the same. It's like, that's why people often say, why do we say it? Why did Hillel say it in the negative, not in the positive? Because if you don't like a particular thing, or you like a particular thing which the other one doesn't like, and you force it down on the other person. So it's better to go with the negative than with the positive. It is better than to say, go and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Yet, but that's a very, very hard one, because the issue depends so much on wanting to be in communication with other people. You know, to be able to say, what is it that you really want? And most people don't trust you enough to say what they really want. I find out Eve says to me, Zalman, what do you really want? You know? And I have such a hard time with that, because the training that I got, Malabodaviz, so what if you want, you know? Yeah, I should go by my preferences. The Rebbeinu Shalom has preferences, other people have preferences, why should I go by my preferences? But it is very confusing to the people you're with if you don't spell out your preferences. You don't have to make your preference become a dictatorial statement, but if you can trust enough to say, this is what I need, this is what I want, it's so helpful, because the other person who comes with Ava for you would like to be able to accommodate you. But if you go with the passive-aggressive stuff, saying, you tell me what you want, you know? And I don't want to say my Geschäft. That's very, very hard.
I mean, it really starts with, excuse me, parent-child. I picked this up from our first child, that he would start out by saying, I need. And I said to him over and over again, if it was the case, you don't need it, you want it. And there's a difference, all right? Those needs we supply. The wants, maybe not. It's a talui. And now, 27 years later, I listen to him, and he's very clear about his needs and his wants.
You trained him well.
Yeah.
Well, but it's also good if they can tell you the wants clearly without having to disguise them as needs, because that's really a manipulation that happens.
Yeah.
For next week in Yirtzeh Hashem, I'd like you, it's going to be past Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit. I'd like you to bring Purim Torah. If you have a Masechet Purim or Masechet Shikurim or whatever, these kinds of things. And I will find some of the things that I have and Xerox a few for you. So, Matai Shotim, Yayin, etc., all these parodies for Purim. I'd love to be able to have fun with you. Because even for these, you have to know how to learn a little bit.
I'm going to drive home.
This is just going to be theoretical. It won't be practical. So, Kol Tuv Rabotai, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
We're a minion, Rabbi Zalman. We're a minion, if you want to.
Yes, let me say Nadish to Rabbanan. Very good.